What's going on, my people? How y'all feeling? I'm back with self-sabotage. I'm Dom. This the podcast. Don't overlook me. Don't overlook me. I'm Dom. You feel me? That's the little acronym I created for based off my name, because this is a real personal experience that I'm going through. Sometimes it's hard to find the words to be able to describe what you're thinking about in your head. And, it's not always easy to articulate a thought or an idea, or to be creative. So sometimes it takes time to be able to find the right words to give, my viewers, or to even articulate myself. So I want to dive into self-sabotage. I've been actually pondering this thought a lot lately. I've been having different conversations with different people, and just getting their perspective on what they feel like self-sabotage is. And I wanna bring your attention to the definition of what sabotage actually is, right? And I think that sometimes we get misconstrued with the idea of how sabotage may look, because we experience it so much that we can't really fathom what's going on in our face when it's happening, right? But sabotage is to deliberately destroy, damage, or obstruct something, especially for political or military advantage, right? I think that that's an interesting concept when it comes to being able to understand what the ideology of sabotage is. And then when we dive into self-sabotage, right, what are some ways that we may destroy, damage, or obstruct something that's dealing with ourselves? And I think a lot of the times, right, when we are dealing with ourselves and we are doing things that we may want to contribute to our success, we do things that disable us from being able to acquire our true potential, or tap into our true potential, or acquire that success, that which is we are looking for, right? I want to dive into what self-sabotage is, right? Because I've been having a hard time being able to understand how it is that I may self-sabotage within my own journey dealing with this podcast, right? I think that this podcast, for me, I've been talking about it for about a little under 4 years now, right before my son was born. My son is 4 years old. He'll be 5 this month. And I've been trying to hit the gas. I've been trying to keep my foot on the gas and just be focused on what it is that I want, right? Before it was about getting the views, before it was about tapping into a particular audience, before it was about maybe like wanting people to follow me. And it's like, I think that those thoughts in itself are self-sabotaging to myself, because at the end of the day, like, people won't follow if I don't post. People won't follow if I'm not consistent, right? Or they won't view if I'm not consistent. So I had to come to that within myself and actually run away from that thought and develop into a different consciousness and pick up new paradigms, right? So behavior is said to be self-sabotaging when it creates problems in daily life and interferes with long-standing goals. The most common self-sabotaging behavior include procrastination, self-medication with drugs or alcohol, comfort eating, and forms of self-injury such as cutting, right? I think that is a very interesting definition that Google gave me, and that gives us as a people. Because sometimes I think that we do engage in a lot of procrastination. And I think that the society that we've developed to grow into has used self-medication as a way to self-sabotage in a way where it's like we're feeling good and we're getting that little dopamine release in our brains, where we think that this drug or this alcohol is making us feel good. But then, like, we close our eyes and we wake up, it's 15 years later now, and we've let all this time go by because we've procrastinated, we've self-medicated for so long. And I am a big like believer in like using certain things for medicinal purposes, right? I.e. marijuana, i.e. Psychedelic sacraments, right? Being able to tap into that creativity that we all have, but we sometimes we self-sabotage, right? I think that the way that I self-sabotage within my podcast is I think too much. Like, I know that I know how to talk. I know I'm articulate. I know that I'm trying my hardest to find the best words that I possibly could find for me to be able to help you guys understand the message that I'm trying to bring. But I think thinking too much into it is where I procrastinate, and then I try to like create this image of what I want or how I want something to look or I want something to be, and then sometimes you don't have the resources to have that be the way your vision wants to be. So you gotta try something new, and you have to figure out what is the best course of action for yourself. And I think that like my success around my podcast really doesn't tie into me wanting views or me wanting people to tap in, because at the end of the day, whether you do or you don't, it's what I want, right? It's what I want. And it's like, for me to be able to create a platform for people to understand that, you can do anything, right? Like, I've been wanting to do this podcast for a while. I've been telling people, I see people in the street, I'm telling people, yo, I got this podcast ready. I'm thinking of things, I'm trying to figure it out. But I think that ultimately that has been a part of my self-sabotage, right? Me telling other people that I'm going to do this thing that I'm not doing, and then I look at myself in the mirror and then I beat myself up for it. Like, why am I not doing what it is that I want to be doing right now? What's stopping me? And I think that procrastination, maybe being lazy, really just holding myself back because of my own emotional intelligence at times, where I may be dwelling on other things that I feel like is more important, as far as family issues that may be holding me back, or things that I dwell on with that, right? I think that that's important for me to realize, and for me to tap into, and for me to be able to understand how not everybody is me, right? Not everybody cares the way I care. Not everybody is articulate the way I'm articulate. Not everybody has the ability to, like, be ambitious, right? So I do have some qualities that's in there that I feel that can help me be more successful or be more consistent with being able to record, edit, and drop some content for my people. And I think that in this lifetime, sometimes we are doing these things like procrastinating, self-medicating, comfort eating, even, self-harm, right? To try to block out the reality that we live in. And I think that for me, I know that for me, that, I smoke marijuana, and when I smoke marijuana, I ponder even more on these thoughts of creativity. So why am I not getting up and acting on it? I think that is self-doubt. And I think self-doubt ties into self-sabotage as well. Not believing in yourself at a cost of like other people's perspective, because somebody said something to you in your life that may have tied into your self-esteem, and now you may have low self-esteem, which ties into maybe your self-determination. And I know that for me, growing up in my life, where my family was very supportive of all the things that I really wanted to do, it was society that really impacted me in a way where I didn't think I was able to do something, right? Growing up, I was like in maybe like early elementary school, I was skinny, you right? And then going into middle school, I started to gain a little weight. And as I got into high school, I started to like bounce in and out of like being skinny, going from skinny to chunky, skinny to chunky, skinny to, and then I finally stood chunky for a while. So for me, my health journey, I've self-sabotaged myself in my health journey, right? And that's tied into my mental health, right? And then even based on my career choice going into college, right? But I also think that it all starts from when we're kids. Like, that's what I'm trying to get at. I think that self-sabotage starts from when we're young, right? And depending on the different interactions that we have, and depending on the way that we choose to respond, or the way that the opposing parties choose to respond to us in those interactions that we have within society, it creates those self-sabotaging thoughts, or those feelings, or those paradigms that we know that shouldn't be there, right? But we can't identify where to start. And I think that that's the biggest, like, journey for us as people, for us to be able to acknowledge that things have happened to us in our lives, for us to be able to say, you know what, maybe I need to take a step back and think about my life and where I've come from. Maybe I need to understand what has happened to me over the course of my life, right? And maybe I need to take a breather and try some new things, right? I know for me, I had a car accident last year, February 9th, 2023. I believe that was the wake-up call for me, because during this process, I've bounced in and out of like frequencies of like being creative, trying to, start my own businesses, trying to start this podcast, just pondering and reading, and in the process, that was all in the mind, right? But what was I doing for my body? So I decided to do yoga. I decided to tap into yoga. I was doing beginner sessions of yoga, just tapping in with that. And even during that, right, my body wasn't ready for these particular positions. So I didn't think internally I was able to do this. And I'm listening to my yoga instructor on YouTube, and they're just telling me like, hey man, just keep going, and be consistent with it, and you'll see you'll see the results. And to my surprise, as I'm doing the yoga over and over throughout the course of a month, I've seen that my body's gotten looser. I've been able to run and get back on the field, and just be able to produce in a way that I like not worried about what other people like, right? And I think that in the process of me doing yoga, it woke me up to something different in myself. Me understanding that my body, the inside of my body, my mind, and then also things that society has told me during that time when I'm on that mat. I am constantly reevaluating myself to be this version that I am right now in front of you. And I want to be able to like take my journey and basically give it to the world, and be able to help the world understand that like where I'm at, like I've come from like a very dark place, you know what I'm saying to you. Emotional intelligence has been my best friend for the past maybe like 5 years, since my son's been born, right? I've been tapping into emotional intelligence, and I think that the way that I've self-sabotaged myself so far has a lot to do with my emotional intelligence, right? And how I dwell on certain bad or negative emotions that may not contribute to my my effectiveness, and how I show up for myself when it pertains to my goals, right? And how I want to have long-term goals that I'm doing things in the present moment, that meaning that I'm doing small things, small little wins to end for the end goal, which is for me to be able to just be consistent, right? Consistency is the end goal for my journey, for me to just be consistent with everything that I want to do, for me to be organized in everything that I want to do. By me to being unorganized, I'm self-sabotaging. By me not being able to articulate how I want to go about things, and by me constantly procrastinating with the way that I choose to go about even just this podcast, I think is in itself a form of self-sabotage. But also like jobs that I've had, right? I think that there's been some jobs that I've had that I've lost, that like for me, I've lost them at a sense of self-sabotage. Like, when I first got the job, I was all happy, all go lucky. I was ready to like hit the ground with like just ideas and to make the particular organization that I was at better. But in the process, I feel like the way that the organization responded to me, I did not like I did not agree with how the organization responded to me. So instead of me, maybe kissing ass and, dotting my T's and crossing my T's and dotting my I's and saying, you know what, I'm just gonna stick it out. My brain just didn't enable me to want to stay there for that long. So I just decided to stop caring about the position or the role. And then it showed up in my work, and my action showed up, and I was lazy, and I wasn't on time, and I wasn't prepared for like notes and stuff like that. And I just lost the sense of wanting to be there. So I think that even as children, depending on our experiences and how we choose to react to things that happen to us in past present moments, we are able to build this self-sabotaging paradigm without, on a subconscious level, without us really noticing that we're doing it. And then when things hit the fan, boom, things blow up in our faces, and now we're at Schitt's Creek trying to pick our way up back to the peak. It's important that we actively take awareness of what is going on in the moment that we are experiencing, what we're experiencing, that's creating these self-sabotaging paradigms. Meaning, like, if something happens at work and maybe your boss don't acknowledge that you've like been working hard, things of those sorts, like, don't beat yourself up because of somebody else's perspective. You feel what I'm saying to you? I've learned this over my course of like working and being in a workforce, and just being able to understand that I am who I am because I choose to be who I am, not because somebody else labels me as something. As far as that goes, I feel like the way we self-sabotage ourselves in the workforce, maybe within our own self, with our own relationships, but also how we show up for our partners is important as well. You can't expect for you to be able to make someone else happy when you are unhappy within yourself, right? So you have to do things to make yourself happy first, as far as diminishing those and cutting out those self-sabotaging thoughts, being unable to identify whether or not you're being self-sabotaging, and then ultimately like having these conversations and these processing conversations to like break down what it looks like for you, how you may view yourself. I think that's very important. Self-sabotage comes at a cost of like self-esteem, like I said. So I right here, what is the root of what are the root cause of self-sabotage? Self-esteem, childhood trauma, a need to maintain control can cause a person to engage in self-sabotaging behaviors. Understanding one's own thought pattern, setting small goals, and seeking support can help an individual overcome behaviors associated with self-sabotage. Which brings me to my next point, right? Throughout the whole process of me explaining everything that I explained to y'all, I know I bounced around a lot and I was creating a lot of different points and understandings. Throughout this whole process, what I was going through, I was in therapy. I forgot to add, the mental is very important. I was in therapy, which go back to my 3 points that I just mentioned before, right? Being able to talk about it with someone and articulate it outside, and being able to identify it with yourself. I think that's very important, because in due process, you are actively battling those societal constructs that's been created to have you think that you should be a certain way, versus you going against the adversity and going through those growing pains and being able to come out on top with awareness and accountability, and being able to, overall understand that it all begins with inside yourself, right? And then how you choose to respond to the world. Um, I haven't been the best response to the world. I'm gonna be completely honest. I have made my fair share of mistakes growing up, but I'm human. I'm a person. I'm flesh, right? I'm not perfect. I don't presume to be perfect. I know that I'm constantly growing. I know that I want to learn. I know that I want to be able to help the next generation learn and grow and be the best version of themselves. So this is my way of helping myself see my growth throughout the next few years, as far as me being able to be consistent, diminishing those self-sabotaging thoughts, no longer being being a procrastinator where I just, I'll do it later, it'll get done. No, it needs to get done now, right? I'm shifting these paradigms, this self-medication, like as far as me being too dependent on a marijuana versus me being able to, hold out and, get what I got to get done first, and then making sure that I'm in a line with what makes me happy, which is important, which I think we all could learn from as a whole, as a collective society, right? And I think that that's really important. And then I really want to like dive deep in before I really end out with just self-sabotage comes at a cost of you knowing what you want to be successful and you not doing exactly what it is demanded of you to be that. So sometimes you're going to have to do things that you don't want to do. Sometimes you're going to have to do things that you have to do, that you want to do. Or sometimes you're going to have to do things that you don't want to do, that you have to do what you don't want to do. To do what you do want to do, excuse me. So I say that to say this. We are all one, right? We connect with each other on a multitude of levels, whether that be physically, mentally, spiritually, right? Tap in with yourself. Tap in with yourself. Love yourself. Have personal motivating conversations with yourself. Check in with yourself. Check in with others that you know that you could trust in and believe in and feel good about being able to have certain conversations with, because that's really important. That's really important. Sometimes we utilize this app as a way to express ourselves. And in a sense of that, I feel like that's self-sabotaging as well, because now if you're really going through something deep and there's somebody on this app that can help you, instead of having the whole world sit there and judge you or create perspectives of you and have you second guess why you think the way you think or feel the way you feel, reach out. Reach out. I could be a resource. The next person right next to you could be a resource. The stranger on a train could be, on a plane, on a boat, in a taxi, in a shared Uber, whatever. Somebody could be there for you. You feel what I'm saying to you? So stop self-sabotaging yourself by putting up all these walls, right? So that when it comes down to you needing to start this journey of like awareness or success or whatever it is that you feel like you need to have, be vulnerable with yourself first to be able to have all these conversations and acknowledge everything that occurs within in your day or in your month or in your week, right? It's really important for us to be able to articulate ourselves and be free in how we do so without any judgment. And for me, I want to say that my road to self-sabotage has led me to today to be able to share the things that I've shared with you guys today. I'm not going to go too further on about whatever it is that I need to talk about. If there's any questions, you could throw them down in the comments. You could double tap for a like if you like what I'm saying, if you got the message. DM the page if you have anything to talk about that you feel like sparked interest or you have any questions about. And ultimately, I just want to say that I'm here to basically not overlook myself, right? So I'm dumb, like I said. Don't overlook me.